Good morning and welcome back to Pipes and Poetry. Welcome back here to my garage where we're going to talk about one of the most famous poems of English literature. We're going to talk about Ode on a Grecian Urn by John Keats. Keats was today we are smoking the Occult Blood Red Moon. It's a cherry flavored tobacco. Anyway, John Keats was born 1795. Died actually tomorrow will be the anniversary, February 23rd, 1821. Ode on a Grecian Urn is by far probably his most popular work. Ode on a Nightingale maybe being the next, or several more could fall into there, but Ode on a Grecian Urn has probably been the most talked about. Pretty tragic life. His father died when he was 8 from a skull fracture falling from a horse. His mother died of tuberculosis when he was 14, which would later go on to kill him, the tuberculosis that is, at age 25. And I know a lot of times we talk about separating the art and artist, or the poem and the poet. But when he wrote this, it's kind of useful to keep in mind. When he wrote this, he knew he was dying. He knew he's not going to live to be an old man. So there's something to think about. Before we do start, I'd like to just have a little discussion because it'll be applicable to this poem. The question, what is art? Now, we may know art. You look up a definition, it says something about something created to be beautiful or inspire emotion or something like that. And all that's fitting. But the one thing to think about is it's something created by man. To me, that's a key point. The other thing is that it's artificial, right? It's not produced in nature. I think for just a quick lesson in Plato, for those who don't know Plato, he considered the poets or artists not to be worthy of being in his republic and wanted to run them out, because they lied. Their representation of reality was a lie. Or something like that. It's been a long time since I've read or studied Plato, but and that'll come into play. The last line or last two lines of this poem are some of the most discussed and written about lines in poetry. So, and it has to deal with art. The whole thing has to deal with art. It has to deal with an urn, right? Apparently he's sitting there looking at an urn in a museum. An urn that has probably been stolen from Greece by the British, placed in their museums for their people to come to London and look at. But these urns, and you can look them up, they're not necessarily what we would think of as an urn today, where it's just a place to put the ashes of dead people. I think they were used for many purposes, carrying water, wine, what have you, any sort of liquid. Or we were talking about, so the Grecian urn would be decorated, and it would have these scenes on there that would be painted of various things in there, of stories or old tales, maybe pictures from the Iliad or the Odyssey, whatever. may have gods and things on there enacting the stories that were famous and that the Greeks knew. So this is what Yeats is looking at that inspires him to write this poem. All right. And like I said, keep in mind the whole idea about art. Art is artificial. It's human made. Is one of the key components of art. So let's take a look at the first stanza. Thou still unravished bride of quietness, thou foster child of silence and slow time, sylvan historian, who canst thus express a flowery tale more sweetly than our rhyme? What leaf-fringed legend haunts about thy shape of deities or mortals or of both? In Tempe or the dales of Arcady, what men or gods are these? What maidens loath? What mad pursuit? What struggle to escape? What pipes and timbrels? What wild ecstasy? Now here's, I think it's generally looks like he is speaking to the urn. He addresses it in a manner. This thou, I believe, is the urn. However, he describes what might be scenes on the urn, an unravished bride. The urn is silent, and keep an eye on these silence and song, because he talks about his rhyme here. Slow time is obviously this. The urn is eternal. This is going to be one of the key points we'll talk about in here. Is that the urn represents art, which is going to be, this urn will be eternal until someone breaks it or it decays away or something like that. But it's been here. It is an old, very old urn from the Grecian times. So we're talking very old, over 2,000 years old at his time when he's looking at it. So I don't know what the date would be on it, but and he sort of describes some of the scenes. This is sort of I think anyway, sort of a foreshadowing of what's going to be coming. He says that on there is depicted men's or gods. Not sure about the locale, either in Tempe or Arcady. I think Tempe sort of denotes where the gods were. I think it was some sort of veil between Olympus and the humans or something like that. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. But anyway, he gives some possible locales for the action depicted on the urn. He's asking what maidens are these. And this gets back to the pursuit. We'll see more of that. The pursuit of a young lover chasing a young maiden or attempting to woo a young maiden. Maybe she struggles to escape. Maybe it's depicting one of the stories from the gods, such as Leda and the Swan, which turns out to be a Yeats poem. But Yeats is after this. But that's where Zeus and pursues Leda, captures Leda. Anyway, so that's sort of the setting up the tale, but he does speak to, he refers to the urn as a sylvan historian. I need to change my thing so you can see all the stuff I've been underlining. So, not that we've gotten too far into it. The sylvan historian, like we said, the urn is telling a tale, a historical tale. It has a story. So that's the first stanza. We get in the second stanza, and he says, heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. Therefore, ye soft pipes, play on. Not to the sensual ear, but more endeared. Pipe to the spirit ditties of no tone. Fair youth, beneath the trees thou canst not leave thy song, nor ever can those trees be bare? Bold lover, never, never canst thou kiss. Though winning near the goal yet, do not grieve. She cannot fade, though thou hast not that bliss. Forever wilt thou love, and she be fair. Okay, so again, when I said pay attention, because he talks about, curiously, he calls this our rhyme. And he says that the urn can tell a tale more sweetly than our rhyme. I don't know if he's including us, the reader, in that. If it's the speaker and the reader. If this is, just the poem speaking and it's the poem and the reader. But anyway, playing on that, he says that heard melodies are sweet. So heard melodies would be like what you hear when you turn on the radio in your car or you go to a concert, like real in nature human melodies. But those unheard, those depicted on the urn, because apparently there's one of the depictions there is of a piper piping to the one he loves or something. But unheard are sweeter because they don't play to the sensual ear, which would be one of the senses, the human ear. They're more endeared because they pipe to the spirit. And that's what he's saying that the urn is doing. The urn is inspiring him. And you might want to think about creating something in his imagination. So this urn, which is art, inspires him to make art, the poem. And they're ditties of no tone, so songs of no tone. And then we get what is definitely a description of one of the scenes. Fair youth beneath the trees. The fair youth can't leave his song, but forever those trees can't be bare. They'll always have leaves on them. We'll see later that it's springtime. We'll talk about that. So the trees have leaves and they forever will in this depiction. Then he says, bold lover, you can never kiss the one you love. You'll never obtain your bliss, but forever you will be in love, and forever she will be fair. So this is not the type of love that's going to grow old. We'll talk about this a little bit, but she's always going to be a young maiden in this scene, and forever will be. So it seems like in his imagination, the spirit that's inspired by this unheard song that the urn is putting out, it speaks to his imagination. And so we'll go on. The next stanza is, ah, happy, happy boughs that cannot shed your leaves, nor ever bid the spring adieu. And happy melodies, unwearied, forever piping songs forever new. More happy love, more happy, happy love, forever warm and still to be enjoyed. Forever panting and forever young, all breathing human passion far above, that leaves a heart high sorrowful and cloyed, a burning forehead and a parching tongue. So he describes more the love. We're in spring. I don't think this would have the same effect if the urn depicted a snowscape or a time of winter. We talked about, if you listen to any of my other poems, what seasons do, especially in Shakespeare. Seasons typically carry the meaning of what that season in spring is when plants start growing again. It carries the ideas of rebirth and, reproduction, the time of reproduction, spring. So that's the season that's depicted on the urn. And that's the, so the the ideas that are going along here, and everything is green and everything is happy, and it always will be because it's depicted on this urn, and it will never decay. Like I said, as long as the urn lasts, these scenes, this young man will always be playing his flute to his want to be lover. Some poetic devices in here that make it kind of flow. This it sort of gets upbeat here. It has sort of been getting more and more upbeat. I guess if you were to read the whole thing through, this compare that to later happy happy boughs, happy happy love, forever warm. Pay attention to that warm. The scene depicted is warm, the urn, and still to be enjoyed, forever young. So again, this is the young love he's talking about. That's never going to get old. This is never going to become, husband and wife love or long-term human love. This is the desire of your teenage years, or when you first met someone you're attracted to and thought that you had a chance for that to be reciprocated. This is whether it be high school or college or whatever. So it's that type of love. Now we sort of take a turn here, and it sort of takes a turn where he describes the regular love, I guess, all breathing human passion far above. I'm not really sure above what it may be there. I'm just not seeing it. I'm sure, but he goes more happy happy love, and then he says it's forever warm and still to be enjoyed, forever panting and forever young, all breathing human passion far above. And I think this is that which, or that leaves a heart high sorrowful employed. So this is sort of comparing it to actual human love or a long-term love, instead of the young, just fresh love. And so we get to this turn where now we aren't talking about these lovers anymore, and we get to this priest leading a cow to sacrifice. So let's take a quick look. Who are these coming to the sacrifice? To what green altar? O mysterious priest, leadst thou that heifer lowing at the skies, and all her silken flanks with garlands dressed? What little town by river or seashore, or mountain built with peaceful citadel, is emptied of this folk this pious morn? And little town, thy streets forevermore will silent be, and not a soul to tell why thou art desolate can e'er return. So, I mean, he's looking, I think, off urn at this point. He's imagining there's a new scene where a priest is leading a cow to an altar, which I think is also off the urn, because he says what mysterious or what green altar, so it's not depicted there. The heifer is lowing at the sky. She's dressed. The heifer has silken flanks and has garlands to make her suitable for sacrifice to the gods. But he knows that these people who must be following this procession must have come from where, and he asks what little town. And he says that, this town, although the scene freezes in time, this happy scene of the lovers and the beautiful, dressed up procession. Obviously, it's unfortunate for the cow, but it seems to be like it would be some sort of ceremony for people. And but they leave behind a town that will forever be desolate. So, even though it's not depicted, why does he choose to sort of ponder on the fate of this town? And that's not depicted there. So, I'm not sure, but I think there's, it points to other things that are gonna come up. So, but let's do the last stanza. All right. O Attic shape, fair attitude, with breed of marble men and maidens overwrought, with forest branches and the trodden weed, thou silent form dost tease us out of thought, as doth eternity, cold pastoral. When old age shall this generation waste, thou shalt remain in midst of other woe than ours, a friend of man, to whom thou sayest, beauty is truth, truth beauty. That is all ye know on earth and all ye need to know. Now, real quick before I get started, this, I believe, I copied from poetryfoundation.org, but I think if you go to poets.com or .org or something, it will be different. And I think, and I couldn't go up in my attic to dig out my Norton Anthology of English Literature, which has this, and I would pretty much trust Norton to have it depicted, the way that Keats had it published whenever it got published or whatever. But I believe that these quotation marks right there should be right here. So the urn speaks this. Here, we'll do this in blue. The urn speaks that. And then the poet finishes with the rest. Now, it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. Well, I mean, it could, obviously. To a scholar, it's going to matter a great deal. To us, not really so much, but just so you know, I think maybe Keats had intended for the urn to only say beauty is truth, truth beauty. Now, this is the phrase I've been talking about that has been studied over and over since the poem has been written. But let's take a look at what the thing says, the last stanza. He says, O Attic shape, means Greek. We'll go back to yellow just say. O Greek shape, or Athenian maybe, something like that. Fair attitude with breed. Breed, I think, means braid. So there's like a braiding. But it says braid of marble men and maidens overwrought. There could be a idea in here about them being overwrought, meaning either maybe the maidens distressed or the men and the maidens both being overly formed, painted, over, wrought would mean formed as in like wrought iron or something like that, but it could be overdone, such as he's saying this art may be overdoing it. Anyway, thou, again, speaking to the urn, this is the poem or the speaker speaking to the poem, silent form, dost tease us out of thought as doth eternity. So again, to tease us out of thought. So if we're normally, our everyday condition is to be wandering around in thought, or, normal state of being is to be in thought. And this poem teases us out of thought the way eternity does, meaning that we can't really think about eternity. The human mind really doesn't, even today, with all our theories of relativity and quantum physics and stuff like that, it's still hard to grasp the idea of endlessness or, unlimited space or time or something like that. It's still difficult to process. And 200 years ago 200 years ago would be close to the same, or, if not more, because less even then was known about science and astrophysics. But anyway, so I tend to think of this as contemplating eternity seems to be more of like picturing the sublime. That's what the sublime would be, according to, like an art critic or something like that. So this would tie more into like the imagination part. So it teased him out of thought into imagining this scene going on in the art, and to writing this poem. So then he says, cold pastoral. Now, the P is capitalized here. So it's now pastoral means a rural scene of some sort, maybe where you would see shepherds and sheep or cows. Obviously, this is depicting a pastoral scene. I don't know if it merits the urn, though, being called a pastoral. Maybe it does. I mean, he hasn't really called it an urn other than in the title, I don't think, right? He calls it a bride, a foster child of silence, a historian. But he says cold pastoral compared to warm, as he addressed it over here, where he's talking about the people in it are forever warm. And maybe that makes him even colder, because these people will forever be warm and in love. And remember, he's dying, and not in the sense that we're all dying eventually, hopefully some a long good ways down the road, but he's dying soon, knowingly. I don't know if that's enough to make him, he sits there and enjoys the beauty and then realizes what he's looking at and its impact, and he comes back. This is what I call when he comes back to reality. He has, up until this time, he has, gone on this journey of watching, all this and this, watching the urn and telling us, writing a poem about it. But then at the end, his injunction here, or whatever this is, I think it's an injunction. Oh, Attic shape. Whereas before he was like, ah, happy love. Now he does use oh, mysterious priest. It doesn't necessarily mean that his tone has changed. I don't think, but it could be, possibly. And maybe it's sort of more of a cry of despair instead of over here sort of a cry of sort of joy. Ah, happy vows, and now oh, Attic shape. But anyway, there's definitely, I think, a turn here when he says cold pastoral. He comes out of this sort of trance. He's been teased out of thought, as eternity would, the thought of eternity, and now he's back to reality and says cold pastoral. And then he goes on to say, he speaks to the urn again, and he says, when old age shall this generation waste? Meaning, when this generation, his generation, dies, and knowing that he's not going to be a part of that, at least as in the long-lived part, he's going to be gone before this generation is laid to waste. But even then, when this generation is laid to waste, you shall remain, urn, in the midst of other woe. So here he says, after this generation, you'll remain in. So he's saying that the urn is in woe now. It's in the midst of woe. So is he maybe starting to resent the urn's depiction of the happy love, existing in such pain, because, in the midst of such human pain, real pain. Because he says, when this generation dies, you will remain a friend to man, and in the midst of this other woe. So he's in woe now, and the next generation will also be in woe. Maybe he's just saying the human condition is a state of suffering. In the midst of other woe than ours, a friend to man. Now, so I don't think he's criticizing the urn's existence. He says that you will be a friend of man and you will still have a lesson to teach, but it's a cold truth um, that life is not like in the urn, or at least maybe for a little while it might make you think of happy thoughts, but eventually you wake up from that and you're back to being in the midst of your woe. But you're going to be a friend of man, urn, and you're going to say that beauty is truth, truth, beauty. That is all you need to know. That is all you know on earth and all you need to know. Now, these last two lines, like I said, have been discussed. I have been in discussions about those last two lines. I've read about them. I've watched it on YouTube. Looked up all sorts of discussions on what that means. I think the simplest is that it's just the romantic notion. The Romantics were like, beauty is truth and truth is beauty. Beauty is all that matters. Art and beauty is all that matters. And then that's all you know and all you need to know. But if we think back in that art is artificial, if we go and think about that for a moment, if beauty is truth, then beauty is not art, because art is a lie. Art is and it's not a lie, and then you can't appreciate it. I'm saying it's not the truth. You can contain truths in art, right? Like you could read a passage of Shakespeare and find or somebody and find a profound statement that's a truth about the human condition or something like that. But in the end, Hamlet doesn't exist. Hamlet, obviously, even if there were a person named Hamlet, the Hamlet of Shakespeare's Hamlet never existed, other than on the stage or the page, right? He was never there. He's alive. And by lie, I'm not being negative about it. I'm saying it's, and I'm thinking kind of like Plato does, it's not the real thing. Although, and I firmly believe in stories, whatever universe you create in the story, you have truths that are in that story, or laws of, stories don't have to, Superman can fly. That's a truth in the story of Superman. That's not a lie. It's real in the story of Superman. Hamlet is real in the play Hamlet. But when this says beauty is the art, the urn says to you, to us, to our generation and the generations to come, beauty is truth. And I mean, this is the last two lines. This is the most profound statement that this urn can say: is beauty is truth, and conversely, truth is beauty. I don't have the 100% correct answer, and none of them, every answer I've ever heard has either been like mine, where I'm not sure, it could mean this, could mean that, or I think they all come up short. Anybody that's like, well, it's just the Romantics, they think beauty is truth, it's their highest value is beauty, and I look for a little more than that. It just seems a flimsy argument to me. It doesn't necessarily mean the truth I see, or at least the thing I like about it the most, is that it's something you can think about all the time. You can read this poem, and maybe next time you read it, you'll be like, I got it. Beauty is truth, truth is beauty. Because the other part is that is all you know on earth and all you need to know. Obviously, I think they're talking big picture, right? Because it's not all I need to know, right? It's not going to help me buy groceries, If I can't go to the counter and be like, beauty's truth and truth's beauty, and hey, they said that's enough, here's your groceries. I got to know some more things than that, but on the grand scheme, maybe it is. So read it again. Read it every so often. It's worth it. Again, this is in. I don't like to rank poems. I've said this before, but if anybody made a top, 10 list, or definitely top 20 list, this is the top 20 poems in English literature. I think many people would probably fight me and say it should be in the top 5 or something like that. It's, I don't know. I like it. I mean, it's one that I read, frequently. So read it, think about it. There's definitely lots in there to think about. As you're going through, remember, I kind of brought it up, but didn't really touch on it. Look at the silences and the songs, and there's themes that go throughout that you could trace and think about for a long time. And maybe one day we'll revisit it and do it again. But that's all for now. Thank you for watching. This has been Pipes and Poetry, and please feel free to like and subscribe to the channel if you so desire. And I look forward to seeing you again.